So in this video, we're going to be covering the version and region changes between Star Ocean's second story for the PS1, Star Ocean's second evolution developed by Tosei for the PSP and in Japan, PS3, PS4, and Vita, as well as the recently released Star Ocean Second Story R developed by Gemdrops. Second Story R features an insane amount of changes, more than any previous game we've covered before. The quality of life changes alone are so wild they will save you several hours off of your playthrough. We've got so many new mechanics, as well as refinements and rebalancing on every front imaginable, down to item and equipment parameters, to skills, to frame data, to hitboxes, to hit stun, range, MP costs, and more. And Star Ocean games are also already heavy on mechanics, so there's an overwhelming amount of aspects to cover. We may miss some things, but as you can see from the video length, we'll cover as much as we possibly can. This video was made possible by the Star Ocean Wiki, Try a Speedrun, and Star Ocean Second Story GameFAQs communities for their documentation. Special thank you to Square Enix for providing me with the PS4, PS5, and Steam versions of the game for this video, Expelsword for providing me with fantastic feedback on this video, my friend Phil for providing me with his save file so that I can show and record more characters, and of course my patrons for their continued support. So let's get started with the original Star Ocean, the second story. In the localization, the fairy heel sprite was clothed and the 10 wise men were renamed from archangels. Overall, it is a charmingly flawed localization to say the least. In the PAL version in JP PS1 Books revision, you can hold X to speed up the item creation animation. The PS1 Books revision came out in 2005, but didn't fix any of the notable bugs in the PS1 version. Some example of those bugs in every PS1 version are that if you revive or heal someone that was incapacitated after using escape, they'll take literally minutes to run away, the Gale skill just doesn't do anything, changing your killer move and leaving the menu fast enough disables encounters until the game has to load something, and lastly, there's a very rare chance for the game to just freeze after any given battle, and it's been noted to occur most often during the post-game dungeon that has no save points, likely because you would spend more time in battle there than you could anywhere else in the game. Now before going forward, the Star Ocean games are packed with mechanics that'll appear overwhelming to new players, and the terms for them overlap with other RPGs, so let's get up to speed on many aspects of the game we're gonna cover. Item creation broadly covers every practice regarding creation of items, from food to weapons to books to armor. Specialties are skills utilized to play more efficiently, from altering the encounter rate to pickpocketing to boosting experience earned in battles. Super specialty are the fields of specialties or item creation that require 2 or more characters to perform. Talents are traits you'll both start with and can learn over time. They increase the success rate of item creation and specialties. Skills are the stats required to perform item creation and specialties. Not all of them are for that though. For example, Perseverance or Determination in the future versions reduces the required SP needed to level up a skill, and Effort reduces the required XP for your next level. Combat skills are your passive skills utilized in battle, from chance to reduced cast time to chance to evade attacks. And killer moves, or as they're later known, special arts and spells, are the moves you use in battle. For the PSP version, we've got new animated cutscenes, an anime opening, many new private actions, though some different or lost, more endings, and Welsh is now playable. There's a completely new localization. Locations, items, talents, skills, special arts, and characters have updated names, including the 10 wise men whose names were reverted back to archangels. Despite that though, the Cure-All spell has turned from a cross to a pillar. Additionally, a non-detailed scene of a family's death now cuts to black, and under localization, Rain is now 18. Quality of life improvements include running by default, some spell animations are shorter, extra difficulty modes are now unlocked by defeating 2,000 enemies rather than finishing the voice collection, items now auto-sort by type, item creation can once again be sped up by holding X, and all prior bugs we mentioned have been fixed. The game has been rebalanced in several ways. Melee characters now have a 3-hit combo, short-range anti-air attacks won't make you jump anymore, the Star Guard is now an accessory instead of a shield, the elements Thunder, Star, Vacuum, and Void were removed, spell fusions were removed, battlefields were homogenized with hazards being removed and more consistent layouts with more terrain across the board, surprise encounters now start with you stunned, you can cancel an action before you actually do it with the square button, whether it worked originally, scouting definitely works better now, and the Slayer ring, known now as the Ring of Lightspeed, now works for Diaz. Additionally, more combat skills were added along with some being overhauled. Cancel, where you would cancel a normal attack instantly into a special art, is now just a passive feature. Gale, now called Godspeed, not only increases movement speed but gives a chance to teleport towards the enemy. Flip, which is a chance to teleport behind an enemy, was replaced by Backstab. Backstab is functionally identical, but instead of being bought, it is the reward for beating the Dragon Tyrant in the post-game dungeon instead of the Float skill. Float, along with Provocation and Strong Blows, were cut. New skills include Concentration, which is a chance to prevent spellcasting from being disrupted when hit, Recast, which reduces spell cooldown, and Trance, which has a chance to increase spell damage. And there's other minor changes like the Bunny Call super specialty can't be used to climb over towns and certain terrains anymore. Backgrounds have generally either been zoomed in on or are stretched and are generally more compressed than they were before. Character portraits were redone in a consistent art style with Star Ocean first departure. They are less detailed, though the positive to these are their expressions and a little bit of pose variety. The combat UI was overhauled to take up less space and fit on the PSP screen. They also added cast bars for mages and items to the top of the UI rather than next to the character, as well as a radar. The menus are also organized better to where skills, item creation, specialties, and super specialties are now grouped together. The 3D inventory items are now 2D icons, so there's no item morphing during item creation either. Other 3D model assets like the overworld are now higher poly though. The PS1 version ran at 60 FPS in towns and menus, but up to 30 FPS in the overworld and battles, and would struggle depending on how much is going on. The PSP version is the same, but it is much more stable. The main story now has voice acting and features a new voice cast different from the original PS1 voices.
We have a full score with this!
Well, I'd say that's worth 10 out of 10.
The music also has a different sound to it. Second Evolution also released digitally for PS3, PS4, and Vita, and includes achievements and higher resolution assets in general. Both openings for Second Evolution use the same song. The first opening received a new song, though the original song over the second was removed. This version also had some interesting booster DLC, runs up to 60 FPS, though the Vita version can't maintain that. The boat traveling theme plays in the overworld instead of the actual overworld music for some reason, and in some cases, character sprites are now stretched. And now we have Star Ocean Second Story R, which is a remake developed by Gemdrops. There's no anime cutscenes during the story anymore. All of those scenes are as is in-game or are 3D pre-rendered moments. However, in the menu alongside the voice collection is an ending collection to keep track of the game's 99 endings, the prologue, and a new animated movie. The portrait art for prior versions is also found on the status screen, but nowhere else. We've also got item, enemy, and fish encyclopedias, which, yes, other new content includes the ability to fish. Reina is also 17 again. General gameplay quality of life upgrades include cutscenes, fast forwarding, and even skipping cutscenes, quick healing along with several other shortcuts mapped to buttons, autosaves, conversation logs with voice playback, applied effects info to see, for example, if some effects stack. All difficulty options are available from the start and are rearranged by name between easy, normal, default, and hard difficulty. Difficulty can be changed at any time. The game over screen presents you with a retry option that sends you back to the menu first. The equip wizard asks before auto-equipping. Treasure chests are now colored based on their loot. There's now a boost button when flying the Synard. There's bulk item creation. You can land without getting out of the Synard. And item drops from accessories like the Sprite's bracelet are no longer pausing pop-ups. Random encounters have been removed. In their place are shadows that float around and are colored depending on your party level. Red shadows are very strong fights and green shadows are weak fights. This introduces a pseudo-stealth mechanic. Instead of back attacks being based on stats, you can get back attacks on enemies by approaching their backs, but they also get back attacks on you by approaching yours. Additionally, if enemies are close to each other, they can be fought together in a chain battle, which grants you a bonus multiplier to XP in full. The chain battle mechanic was also implemented into the Fun City Arenas battles. Enemies now have shield gauges, and when you deplete it, you'll put them in break, where they will be staggered and your attacks will crit and ignore defense. The bonus gauge in battle fills up via attacking enemies, suffering break, defeating enemies, and landing crits. There are 3 tiers of buffs granted by the bonus gauge, and those tiers and buffs are decided by your formation selection. The gauge gets reset if you break, are KO'd, or start the battle being back attacked. B is a dodge button now, and dodging at the right time when an enemy blinks red gives you a perfect counter when you dodge, which regens 25% of your MP and deals more damage as well as shield damage. But you are vulnerable to break during your dodge, as you don't get iframes unless you trigger the perfect counter, so this is a serious risk-reward mechanic. Assault actions are assists that you can call in via the D-pad. You can change which move your party members do, but you can also utilize protagonists from past Star Ocean games, which you can earn throughout the base game. None of them are DLC. With this feature in mind, characters not used in battle now gain 1/5 experience. Leader enemies are larger enemies in an encounter that are more powerful and buff enemies or debuff your party until defeated or they suffer from break. Additionally, when you break them, they'll chain break all other enemies. Raid enemies are overworld encounters that drop notable rewards and also house new extremely strong weapons for characters in endgame. In addition to effects on equipment, they can also now have factors, which offer a whole new slew of bonuses to equipment on top of their effects. Equipment can come with them, or you can add and change factors via the new remaking specialty. With factors and other new mechanics comes along various new pieces of equipment. With the Archangel's bracelet combined with something that adds hits, stars aren't equally added per hit anymore. Magic has been buffed significantly in a number of ways again. Spells now multi-hit throughout their casting, most spells do not pause the game anymore, and the ones that do can be skipped, and there's even an option to enable auto-skipping them, and other variables such as factors and new equipment also end up buffing mages too. A melee-focused party is still gonna steamroll more effectively than a magic-focused party. However, you can still make any party combo work and do so more efficiently than before, especially by utilizing magic users with assault actions as assists, though assault actions do have a damage cap you can't remove. New combat skills include Heavy Hitter, where there's a chance for shield damage to increase when you perform a perfect counter, Breaker, where there's a chance for greater shield damage, Accumulation Aid, where there's a chance of bonus spheres to remain in the bonus gauge when it's broken, Surpass Damage Limit, where your max damage potential is raised depending on the skill's level, and Overload, where there's a chance of an enemy suffering longer stun time if their shields have been repeatedly broken. In addition to the new mechanics spawning new skills, special arts are rebalanced to where some are better for break while others are better for raw damage. Battlefield terrains are also still homogenized, but the minecarts came back. Special arts are no longer upgraded via usage, and SP is no longer a finite resource. Instead, you get SP and BP from both battles and engaging with other systems in the game. SP and BP are then spent on skills, combat skills, and arts. Link arts aren't tied to an accessory anymore, so at a certain point, all of your melee characters can set linked moves. With the rework of skills, the guilds are no longer used to purchase skills. Instead, you go to them to pick up and turn in guild missions, which are, for the most part, tutorial objectives that give you rewards like money, items, SP, and BP, and encourage engaging with the various item creation mechanics in the game. There are also challenge missions. These are challenges you complete passively throughout your playthrough for various rewards, and are another good source of money, items, SP, and BP. Determination or Perseverance on PS1 now costs 12 every level instead of 8. Piety, instead of being a percentage-based increase to a stat, now distributes random stat points depending on its level, eliminating the idea of holding off on leveling it until late game. And while you can't get as much from it now, it is your only way of increasing your crit stat without equipment. Newly created items don't need to be appraised anymore. Instead, appraise is for stuff you could find. With writing in the prior versions, skill books only worked up to level 5 and required 5 levels in the skill they were writing for. In the remaster, you can pick which skill to make a book for, and they work up until level 7 and have no skill prerequisites to write anymore. Training, which grants more XP from battles at the cost of attack and defense, is calculated per character now instead of by the whole party. Enlightenment, which granted SP at the cost of hit rate, avoidance, guts, and speed, now instead grants SP and BP at the cost of full. As a result, both training and enlightenment are much more worthy of investment than before. With how encounters were changed, the Wild Instinct talent is now acquired through a small chance when enemies spawn. The menus have been vastly overhauled and organized much more intuitively, and information you'd want to see is significantly more convenient to find. And for some of that info, you don't have to pay a fortune teller to access it anymore. Other benefits to the overhaul include that you can bring up the progress and requirements to upgrading your super specialties, you can upgrade all relevant skills to a given specialty at the same time, and you can see the results of item creation after making the result for the first time, along with how many potential outcomes there are, and even the benefits of upgrading arts and spells. Creations that have a single potential outcome are also now highlighted in yellow. Instead of only one item you can pickpocket, there are now 3 to pick from, with your success rate now visible. Before, you'd only get 1 chance to steal, but now you have 3 chances and can refresh them with relaxed perfume. Also, there is food that can negate the relationship effect of pickpocketing. Like we said before, fishing has been introduced. Fishing brings along a new character, Reel, who gives you rewards for your discovering new fish and lets you trade fish for various rewards. New super specialties include remaking, which we mentioned earlier, and bodyguard, where your party members that walk with you will hold enemies in place, letting you walk by them or get the back attack on them, in addition to automatically defeating green enemies for easy farming. Friendship levels had some changes to them too. First off, there's no separate relationship levels anymore, and now that we can see friendship levels represented by hearts, we can discern who a character is currently going to have an ending with. Moreover, when levels rise, they rise equally for the involved characters. You've now got full maps of every location that you can pull up at any time alongside objective markers that let you know your next main story step, side quest, events, treasure chests, interactables, and private actions. With these maps, you can also fast travel now, not just to any town, but any save point in many buildings, and on PC and PS5, there's no load times going between the end of a dungeon to the item shop in a town across the world. Landmarks were introduced, which give you a little lore as well as a healthy amount of XP and items. It could be argued that these new map features limit exploration, but there are still unmarked things and missables that you could explore for. On that note, some private actions are now just events instead, such as the steps requiring optional characters. Private actions also no longer require leaving a town just to enter it again via the square button, which you have to do repeatedly as characters can't be involved in more than one private action per visit. So instead of that whole process, you can just activate private action mode on the fly. AI tactics have been consolidated and you can change them per character during battles, as well as command anyone in a party to cast a spell without swapping control to them. The AI will also now use their 3-hit combos as well. You're always targeting an enemy now, and you can hold left trigger to change the target and right trigger to change who you play as. For the AI, you can control who they target via the top right option in battle. Full exploration of the world, the optional endgame dungeon, and unlocking the harder final boss via a private action now require you to finish the final boss and have a clear save instead of just reaching the final save point. Across the board, many farming tricks or strategies still work in this version, but it's worth considering if the new or refined mechanics offer easier ways to do things. One consideration is that since crafting is unlocked earlier than before, you can now get the Nimble Fingers talent for your leader before Kurik now. You can also pickpocket a magic camera and cross castle to start replication. Some puzzles were changed as well, and you can't get stuck in the Field of Might anymore, though the avalanche you can trigger was left intact anyway. New Game Plus has also been introduced. You start with every item except story ones, the same money, SP, BP, leveled skills, friendship levels, encyclopedia completion, fun city facilities, guild and challenge mission completion, and player info stats excluding treasure chests, which are reset. The game was designed around multiple playthroughs, as you can't recruit everyone in the first playthrough or get all the endings in one playthrough, so thankfully with everything we've talked about, especially the ability to fast travel and see where events are, the average player can save around 10 hours or more on their casual playthrough. Pre-rendered backgrounds have been replaced with fully modeled environments, helping the game distinguish itself from HD 2D games that are based on originally 2D environments. In some locations, layout knowledge will transfer directly and no black screen between areas areas can be surreal. In many cases though, layouts were updated to just be more convenient or to hold new areas. Aesthetically, Fun City probably got the largest overhaul for a set location, but the whole overworld is also vastly different. Sprites have also been preserved for the most part alongside new animations. Though attack animations and effects have been overhauled and are pretty oversaturated now, so you'll have to consider what you lose in visual clarity. Overall, a battle between the same party and skills used looks radically different due to the new effects and the faster pace of battle. The PC port is also pretty good. There's no native ultra-wide support, though this is a Unity remake, so there's a simple mod, and the frame rate support goes up to 120. In the options, you can also toggle keyboard buttons and swap between the left and right mouse. The game is Steam Deck verified, and on deck if you turn off anti-aliasing you'll get solid performance, though the endgame onslaught of effects can affect performance on consoles to varying degrees depending on the hardware as well as the Steam Deck, though at least for the Steam Deck there's more options to turn down if it bothers you. The Switch version is 720p 30 docked and 576p 30 undocked with anti-aliasing and lower resolution textures and shadows. Load times are, in a vacuum, fine, and the only notable one is whenever you enter the overworld. However, the combination of times with loading into battle, out of battle, and between every screen transition can add up in tedium. Meanwhile, after comparing to 4K on PC, the PS4, PS4 Pro, and PS5 are all 1080p, though PS5 does have better anti-aliasing, and these platforms go up to 60, and that's generally maintained, though the overworld on PS4 is actually capped at 30. We've got a new rearranged soundtrack option along with an option for the original soundtrack as well. There are 3 voice acting options: the English PSP voice acting, the Japanese PSP voice acting, and a newly recorded Japanese voice acting with the same actors from the original PS1 game.
へえ、あそこが君の住んでいる村か。でもいいのかい？いきなりお邪魔しちゃって。
構いませんよ。助けていただいたお礼もしたいですし。
へえ、あそこが君の住んでいる村か。でもいいのかい？いきなりお邪魔しちゃって。
構いませんよ。助けていただいたお礼もしたいですし。
And in general, the voice quality is a lot clearer now.
Arlia, is that where you live? But, are you sure it's alright if I just barge in? Arlia, is that where you live? But, are you sure it's alright if I just barge in?
Of course it is. Besides, I need to repay you somehow. Of course it is. Besides, I need to repay you somehow.
The original Star Ocean second story made its influence for a reason, and for fans of the look, still looks pretty great. Star Ocean Second Story R is on a whole other level in terms of a remake or remaster, because even without the new mechanics or drastic shift from 2D to 3D, a lot of the quality of life features in the game would be fantastic in other RPGs. I felt that they didn't want to add modifiers like disabling encounters and speed up to battles, and instead wanted to just make the game more engaging. Otherwise, the art style can be divisive and the new mechanics as well as refinements may go too far for other people, but Second Story R is a more accessible recommendation for folks today. So that's all for this video. Thank you again to patrons. We'll be covering Super Mario RPG and Persona 3 again at the start of next year, and I'm currently very hopeful that 2024 will be the most active year for the channel. Hopefully. So till next time, thank you for watching.